Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Basementside Chats. I'm Deeg. I'm here tonight with Defcamp and Melderon. What's up, guys?
Hey, how you doing?
How's everyone?
Doing good. This is a stressful week here in the U.S., but I'm struggling through. How about you guys?
It's doing pretty
interesting time. Yeah, it's been this is unprecedented in a lot of ways. Most votes out of any election in the U.S. history. So this has been
right on both sides. Like they're both.
Yeah.
Each side of the election has set a record for the most number of votes for a candidate. It's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, this is
realizing that. I think the pandemic has a lot to do with it. Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think a lot of people, with the mail-in vote thing and all, but I don't know. I've been liking a lot of the memes that have been coming out of this as well. So a lot of trying to, it's very serious. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of try to take have some fun out of it. But I think a lot of people are on the edge of their seats, just waiting to hear what's going to happen. But in the meantime, we can play WoW. So
yeah. I mean, look, this isn't a political podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but like, I feel like, normally, like my life looks like this. I have my 9 to 5, and then after my 9 to 5, I deal with my wife, and then after I deal with my wife, I get to do my gaming thing. And I get to that part of my day this week, and I'm like, oh my God, what's going on with the election? I can't stop thinking about it. So
yeah,
I figure we just get it right out of the way. Now, I'm in a state where my vote doesn't feel like it counts as much. But are you guys located in one of the battleground states?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
we are in Pennsylvania, and it's it definitely feels like
what's the vibe?
So it's crazy, right? Because there's a lot of like late, and like a lot of the ballots are still coming in and stuff like that, and it's just I think everyone's just kind of like waiting to see what side's like a nail biter, you know what I mean? And obviously everyone knows that it's a very important state for either candidate, so it's definitely I feel like for the first time, like your vote really counts in a way, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that I voted. Yeah,
I think like no matter what side of the ballot you're on, I think you've had a lot of ups and downs in your emotional state over the last couple of days in Pennsylvania. Like the Republican side was actually no, it was like Democrat first, like very start, and then Trump started to take the lead, and then Biden came back again. It was like these undulating like leads that just kept happening. So no matter what side of the ballot you're on, you're probably like flipping out if you're a Pennsylvanian.
Yeah.
So it's it's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride. So for those who aren't listening to this live, we're talking on Friday the 6th of November, 3 days since counting started, and we've still no winner has been declared yet in Pennsylvania. It looks like Biden will win, but
yeah, it looks like Biden will win because I think a lot of the mail-in ballots are being counted now. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Interesting times. Well, we'll see what happens, and hopefully all this annoying politics and president stuff doesn't distract us gamers too much from doing the important things in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of, for those of us listening who aren't familiar with you guys and your work, why don't you boys introduce yourself?
Good.
Yeah, why don't you start, Mel? Okay. You want me to go? Okay, yeah.
I can start.
Older brother goes first. There you go.
There it goes. There it goes.
Age before beauty.
So, so my name is Melderon. We run a channel on YouTube called Defcamp Melderon TV, and it's started during the right after the NOS shutdown in 2016. I started making videos, and the primary goal of the channel was to build up hype for Classic WoW. And it kind of transitioned a little bit from that into guide type content and even some community content. But initially, it was just trying to tell people how great this game was and why Blizzard should bring it back. And and currently, right now, it's when the game came out, I kind of slowed down on the videos a little bit leading up to Classic WoW. It was like a lot of videos, right? And then like the game came out, and to be honest, I've been playing it a lot, so it's one of those things where it's like, videos come out on a semi-regular clip right now. We are preparing for TBC, so more videos will be coming out for TBC if it does come out. And that's kind of how my channel works. I mean, like Defcamp streams a little bit differently, but for the video side of things, I try to kind of hype up the game a little bit and then kind of like get into the actual play and then just kind of do some updates as the game comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, like Melderon said, it's always we had worked together on some videos and some stuff had in the past, but I think a lot of our content focuses on Melderon is one of the, I'd say, probably biggest. He's really big, high in the shaman community, so he's got a lot of shaman content on the channel, a lot of healer content on the channel. We're both healers in Classic WoW, so and something that I want to do more in TBC is I personally I wish I kind of did make more priest content in for vanilla, but when I really started, so my first character was a rogue, and we can talk about this later. But I really started getting heavy into priest and into healing in TBC. I did like every raid. I did a lot of PvP on my priest in TBC, and I even did it on private servers again. Late a few years back. So coming with TBC coming out now, I want to do a lot more guide stuff with priests, because I mean that's TBC priest is my all-time favorite class and spec combination. So I'm really excited to hopefully do some work with TBC priest in the coming years.
Yeah, and I mean we'll dig into it more later, but there's also the big question of what will classic TBC look like? How will that transition occur? I know that there are a lot of people talking about that. A lot of worries about the economy being broken right from the start. So
that's good. I think Def has a lot to say on this point, because
I for one am not as worried as most people I think are about the economy. And I mean, I definitely do think that there should probably be some steps taken to hinder the amount of gold that people can come into TBC with. But the thing is the economy in Classic right now is a lot different than the economy was in Vanilla WoW, and to expect that that's going to be any different in TBC is kind of you're kind of I don't know what you're thinking. We're going to see a different type of economy in TBC. A lot of people are going to have a lot of gold, and things are going to be probably the way they are now in Classic with the economy, just in a TBC facet, right? So I'm not too worried about it. I think back in the day when TBC did come out, you did have a lot of people knowing that certain things were going to be big, like jewel crafting. People knew that they were going to need a lot of money for mounts and things like that. So people had the information, but we have that at a bigger and a much more larger way now, I think, with Classic. But I'm not so worried that it's going to ruin the economy. I think things will even out eventually. You know what I mean? They always kind of do with the economy, so I'm not too worried about that.
Sure.
Those are some good points. Yeah.
Anything to add, Melderon?
Not necessarily. I think Def hit the nail on the head, or nails on the head. I think that the gold cap thing is really hard. It's really hard to say what that should be, or if it should be implemented at all.
So this is the idea that in order to get into TBC, you either roll a fresh character or you transfer a 60 from a vanilla realm. We're making a few assumptions about that. If Blizzard went a different direction and just said, "Hey, all vanilla servers are now TBC servers," if they literally recreated the path that many of us went down back in 2007, then it'd be a moot point. But yeah, if you're doing the transfer, they can easily restrict liquid gold.
Exactly.
Right. And I think, transfer is probably the best bet, because it's an MMO. People want to have this sense of continuity, right? Like, you don't want to... Why get Scarab Lord, High Warlord, all these things if you're not going to be able to take it into the next expansion, right? So, assuming that they do that, I personally don't think they should continue the servers. I think that they should actually copy or have some kind of a transfer going from one server to another, because servers like Scarum that we play on has no alliance population. It's like 3%.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's the plan. And then, if there is a gold cap, what is it? How does that affect people from buying raw materials and then making a fortune? Yeah, I don't know. So I go back and forth on whether it even needs to be done. I don't know.
Yeah. Because there are ways around it by just filling up your bank with very valuable things.
Right, exactly. It's really funny though how the community gets stuck on like a few things. Like, one big thing that I heard way back in the day was, let's do TBC without flying mounts. Flying mounts are this huge, horrible thing, and it's like, I don't understand how. I think that would be such a huge integral change to TBC. We were joking. I joke with North all the time because he's team elevator, right? He wants to put elevators everywhere, where so you can get to Elemental Plateau with elevators. You can get to
the flying mounts.
The
All
eye
right.
and all
Yeah,
with
all right.
elevators and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, dude, you're out of your mind. There's no way they're gonna do that. To make such a big change to the game to take flying mounts out. It's never going to happen. Let's focus on the things that we really can try to achieve, and try to make these servers better. Try to get smaller servers with a less crazy population. Let's try to focus on getting the factions balanced and things like that. Let's get the bots out. Blizzard made a huge change about with which I was really happy to see, and I really want to talk about this with the multi-boxers. So this was something that I've been been talking about for a while now, and I always said I don't understand. Blizzard can't make enough money from multi-boxers to basically say like, oh, it's worth it for us, because it ruins so many players' experience. Whether they're it's pay to win. I mean, like, it's that easy. It's a pay to win. Scenario,
right.
Having multi-boxers. So I like to try to focus on like the realistic things. I don't think flying mounts are that bad. I mean, like, are there some downsides of flying mounts? Absolutely. You know what I mean? But
so just to roll it up, like the classic argument against flying mounts is that it literally separates you from other players. And the point of an MMO like WoW or WoW Classic is to socialize, is to do things together. Right. And flying mounts push people apart. And in my impression of it, or my recollection, is that in Burning Crusade, it wasn't as big of an issue because flying mounts were constrained to the Outlands.
Yes.
We'll see how the way the economy shook out, but my impression was most people didn't have early access to flying mounts too.
I didn't get it. I didn't get an epic flying mount until Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah. They may have had a flying mount, but it was the slow one, and most people, if they're trying to get somewhere, they would use their regular mount, and if they had to go up, they would use their flying mount. You know what I mean? And you would have maybe 10% of the players or so with epic flying. You're going to see definitely a lot more people with epic flying, I think, in classic TBC.
Yeah. But, it seems like just general that the distribution of players along the skill curve is much more weighted towards the top end. Yeah. Like just in general, talking about the way that playing the game has changed over 15 years. Access to information, like as exemplified by the channel you put so much time into, Melderon, right, is so much higher. Streams like you, Defcamp, the ones you do, nothing like that used to exist. I remember back in the vanilla days, I was playing on my warrior and I was frustrated by how slow my guild was going. I was trying to figure out how to maximize my performance, our performance. And I was like scanning the elitist jerk forums and trying to message people to learn things. And man, it was really hard to get good information on what was actually effective, because I also think there was a tendency to hoard knowledge in order to compete against other guilds for that kind of thing. Like that group of people was small enough that you actually could compartmentalize information. Whereas now it's basically impossible, because everyone's streaming. And even if you figure out something cool, someone's just going to look at your VOD and copy you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and Elitist Jerks back then was the only really theory crafting group. Like there was, there were theory crafters, but it was kind of like, I think this thing happens at a 30% rate. Whereas Elitist Jerks were the only people actually testing things and saying like, this is a proc rate of this percent. This has a, and thank God they were open about that stuff, because everyone, it was like the Dark Ages basically, right? Like nobody knew anything. But I think you're right about the whole skill thing, with one caveat. I think that like you said, I think Asmongold says this a lot too, and a lot of people say this, is that the skill of the average player has increased over time. And I don't think that's true. I just think there's more information available, right? Like Classic is a very simplistic game when it comes to rotations, for the most part. So It's very hard to. I don't want to say.
I
I don't want to say people aren't good at. I'm just saying, like, I think there's the same percentage of people that are very, very good at the game as there was, but in any game, I just feel like there's less variables in Classic WoW than there is in Retail WoW when it comes to rotation, gearing, things like that.
But what about all the players now? Like, I would say a lot more players now keybind and macro, whereas a lot of, and that's a huge, that right there, just players, having macros and actual using keybinds is a lot, is a huge, actually, I think, thing that actually does make the player base better and more responsive.
But then the parseman wouldn't exist, right? 99 percentile exists because you have to be in the top 1% to be in that percentile.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, there's still people 98, 97, all the way down to 0.
Right, so but the average player is better now than they were then, I think. Like,
if we're talking about vanilla WoW, yes.
Yeah.
It's across the board, right? But I still think you have this from 0 to 100 percentile of people that are, good, right? So you have the top percentile is still 100 percentile. So I think there's still room. There's still like this spectrum of talent, right? So I just want to say, like, everyone, I think what I'm trying to say, like, TLDR is everyone memes that Classic is an easy game, but there's still this spectrum of people, right? And there's still the top 1% and the top 2% that do very, very well and know the idiosyncrasies to make these simple rotations do more, right? They know exactly what gear they need. They know they use the right consumables, the right engineering trinkets. They, so
that mentality is still like common between people who played back then, people who played now. Like, there are people who want to get the most out of it. Exactly. your point, Melderon, about there be more access to information. I also think, like, to sprinkle on top of what you guys have already said, which I agree with everything, is that I think WoW Classic is not really anyone's first MMO. Whereas WoW Vanilla was a lot of people's first MMO. It was my first MMORPG.
Same here. Yeah.
So, like, the idea of key binding is something a lot of people learn in their first game. And also, they learn by seeing, which is something that we couldn't really easily do back in 2004, 2005. But now, watching games is extraordinarily common. In fact, it's almost impossible to avoid.
Yeah.
How many? I'm sure you guys, when you're doing your guild stuff, you lean on pointing your guildies to guides and things to watch. Be like, hey, learn about this fight before you come in. Don't make me teach you everything. That was common back in the day too, but back then it was websites.
That's exactly what I say, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Exactly what I say to people. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I'm like, guys, like, I'm very, like, I don't know, I'm very clear. Like, I don't really sugarcoat things. Like, I'm like, guys, this video, please watch this video. I'm not going to explain every single little detail, like the Gluth fight.
Okay.
Where 100 mages have to kite the chow in the back. I literally said in the mage channel, I am not going to explain to you how to do this. You have to know how to do this yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a mage. You need to know how to do this, right? So, and they did, and then we one-shot Gluth on our PTR. Anyway, we were able. They obviously did it, so they were watching it, but yeah,
I would say that's successful leadership happening right there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we try. I think most of our guild really enjoys being with us. We have a lot of fun. We get stuff done.
We've come a long way from where we were.
It definitely has.
What's the name of your guild?
Yeah. Eden.
Shout out to Eden on Scarum.
Shout out. Yep. We used to be Invictus. We used to be part of Invictus, at least. Invictus has, broken up since then, and we were always the Sidewinder raid. So we are the original, pretty much Sidewinder raid from Eden. We still have a good amount of members from our original raid. We also have Navik, who was, one of the GMs of Invictus, main tanking for us now, and we have a really, really, really good
the slave driver
players.
That's who you were talking about before, right?
Yeah. So
he is the slave
driver. To the healers,
he
is. Yeah. To the warriors.
Oh, you have 20% mana. That's fine. That's enough for you. Yeah, that's fine.
Pace, baby.
Because they never lose the rage.
Keep it moving.
But you know what? We definitely, I think, progress almost every week. So we definitely, and we're, with Nax, we have pretty high expectations. We want to get, a day 1 or day 2 clear. If that's going to be possible with the amount of frost resistance needed for Sath, we'll see. But yeah, we're hoping for that. So
Yeah. And I want to talk about that, but I also want to do justice to a couple of things that we brought up already. So the thing that really fascinates me about World of Warcraft these days, as someone who's not playing it every day, like I haven't touched retail in over 10 years. The last time I played was like the day Old War came out.
Oh wow.
And I only dipped my toes back in Classic for a couple months just to experience the leveling experience. And then once I worked with a guild and we worked our way through Molten Core and then we killed Nixia, I kind of felt like I didn't need to experience the rest to get what I wanted out of it. And that's just me, my personal journey, my interest. But Blizzard and the World of Warcraft franchise continues to be, I think, emblematic of a lot of the problems that games and communities and studios are facing that are trying to do related things, which are trying to bring people together over games to engage in these worlds. And so there are a lot of decisions and and a lot of dichotomies. So over time, we've all observed World of Warcraft go from what was WoW Vanilla, which is a game that's maybe not very hard, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. Like it makes it
time consuming.
Yeah. It says you want to level quick? Too bad. Grind, bitch. Like get on your horse and ride. Do the thing. It took me like a very leisurely 10 days played, I think, to get to 60, which is very leisurely. I actually tried to get the whole way without using Questy because I wanted to just get the authentic OG experience, but eventually, like level 40 something else, like screw it. Questy being an add-on that helps you know where to go for quests as opposed to reading quest texts and trying to figure it out yourself. Right?
Yeah. We're using Thoughtbot.
Thoughtbot, yes. There's an old name.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. That was...
So you guys played Vanilla WoW when it was out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Very poorly.
Yes. We started playing around AQ patch, Run the Gates were open. So I didn't really experience much of like raiding in vanilla. A little bit of like ZG. I mostly leveled my rogue up and focused on PvP. It wasn't till the very end of vanilla or in the beginning of TVC when I really started to raid hardcore and PvP hardcore as well. So which was primarily, I did it both on my rogue and priest. But my rogue, I made the mistake of making an alliance character. So I wanted to, I actually opened a ticket to a GM, begged him if I could transfer him to Horde and all this shit. So yeah, it was really funny. But eventually I just bit the bullet. And I was really, I remember I was doing a battleground on my rogue and I got like destroyed by a Shadow Priest. It's like, you know what? I'm making a Shadow Priest. So I started with him as Shadow and then quickly found that it was a lot easier to get into groups and into the raid as Holy. So I started to heal and fell in love with healing like that. So yeah.
Tell me about healing. I've never done it in an MMO. It always seemed like an annoying UI thing.
I love healing.
You guys are both healers.
Loves healing as much as me, though. So yeah,
it's my least favorite thing to do. But outside of the three main roles, but I'll let Defcamp splurge. He really likes healing. So
I love healing. Yeah.
Tell me about it.
I feel like to me, I don't know. Maybe it suits my personality a little bit. I always enjoy. Like, don't get me wrong. I love doing damage. I love, especially in PvP. I love like one-shotting people. I have an Ellie Shaman, so I love like one-shotting people, and I have a rogue as well. And I love doing damage, and I love seeing top damage or whatever on meteors, whatever. It's a lot of fun. But for me, healing, it's to me, I filled that role very nicely, and I always felt like I was a decent healer. At least I don't know. Melderon could, I guess, be a better. I don't want to speak for myself, but
is he a good healer, Melderon? We're looking for a little bit of validation here.
Yeah, he's our top healer in the guild. Absolutely, he's very, very good. Yeah,
thank you. I always felt like it was something that I could do good. Whack-a-mole was, I love whack-a-mole. So, making that green bar go full, it does something to me. I love it. But no, for real though, I fell in love with Holy Priest in TBC, and there's a lot of reasons why. It's such a good class, such a good spec. You got heals like Circle of Healing, Prayer of Mending, Prayer of Healing. You fill up that raid heal spot very well, but you're also a good single target healer. And there's something to me about just being that person that buffs someone, helps someone in that kind of way. I also really fell in love with Discipline in PvP being that offensive healer that
Mhm.
kind of, is out there dispelling, mass dispelling, doing damage, doing a mind blast, shadow word death combo, and killing someone
Uh-huh.
in the arena, stuff like that. So I really fell in love with the priest class really, really early on, all the way until I believe it was Kata when I re-rolled as a paladin healer, because I didn't like the whole chakra thing or whatever. But yeah, so like for me, healing has always been my go-to thing, all the way until when I stopped playing in Legion. I was doing a mythic rating on a holy paladin all the way in the Legion, and I had fun there too. I thought there was a lot of challenging stuff as a mythic raider, or as like doing high-end mythic pluses. I like the challenge of healing. I feel like they're kind of like don't get enough. They don't get enough. They get attention when shit goes wrong. Oh, it's the healer's fault, when it's never the healer's fault, right? Maybe sometimes it is, but and then when shit is going right, they're just like, oh yeah, it's all the DPS,
Yeah.
but they don't. You know what I'm
Those
saying?
supportive
So,
roles, they're only
Yeah.
noticed when there's a problem, but when they're doing their job great, it's like everything's good. What are you talking about?
exactly.
Like a lot of things in real life, actually. But I think like so. Just I don't want to like lambast healing. I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of interesting theory crafting healing that probably people wouldn't consider. I think that like everyone considers theory crafting DPS and everyone stops there, but that's not true. Healing has a lot of idiosyncrasies involved, and what I like
Right.
about healing as a GM is I've GM'd before, and I've GM'd as a tank and as a DPS, and what I don't like about GMing as a DPS is that you kind of get tunneled into your own personal shit because you're like, I need to see how much damage I'm doing or whatever, or kick this or do this.
Manage my threat.
Yeah, and as a tank, you're staring at the inside of a boss a lot. Like you can't see anything.
Staring at a demon crotch, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But when you're a healer, there is no set rotation, right? It's reactive, which is kind of cool because you don't have a rotation. And it allows you to really see the whole raid a lot and be like, oh, that guy's screwing up. That guy's not where he's supposed to stand. And I really like that as a GM or as a raid lead of some kind.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It kind of like calls to mind like the image of like a battlefield commander, like back with his reserves, like overlooking the battle, ready to come in and support.
That metaphor. I actually use that metaphor in Countdown on the Classic. Yeah.
Yeah, we coined the phrase rear commander.
So I said during a Countdown on the Classic podcast with Josh Corbett, who's I don't know if you know who Josh is, but or I've listened to Countdown on the Classic before, but that was like a podcast before Classic came out. That was the lead up to Classic. And we did a thing on healing, and Defcamp and I were in it, and I said being a hero was like being a rear commander. Well, Josh, who's an Australian and is a very funny guy, made it sexual, and it became like this meme. So it was pretty fun.
Melderon, the rear commander.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I love it.
It was funny.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But it is true. It's very true. You kind of have that sight, you know what I mean, that you're kind of looking at everything that's going on. I saw someone, Melderon forgot to friggin', take away his totems. He pulled the whole raid, you know what I mean? Which happens all the time. I'm kidding. It doesn't happen all the time, but happened maybe once or twice, but I give him shit for it all the time. So, but yeah, you get to see a lot of what people are doing. You also, I feel like, it's, you have the raid on your shoulders, like, so to speak, right? So you, and like Melderon said, there is a lot of theory crafting that goes along with healing, whether you're looking at, which is your highest, HPMS, Melderon and another person made this whole tool about, finding what is your best, heal per mana use and, per, coefficients and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of theory crafting goes into it, especially when you're looking at different items and different tier sets and things like this. So yeah, it's for me, it's always been really satisfying. And I think Melderon, being a shaman, shamans are definitely the king of raid heals in vanilla, right? So Melderon's, got the raid heal thing going. I've got the priest thing going. We definitely, I think, make a good, we have a really good healing core in our guild. So
that's awesome.
We do. Yeah, we have a very good healer core.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really fascinated by this idea of the rear commander healer. It sounds Melderon, I've heard you say a bunch of stuff about, as a guild leader, as a raid leader. It sounds like this is something you're really focused on personally.
I really, really enjoy it. It's funny because the whole hardcore thing, which is very, very fun and interesting, and Cargo's like kind of developed this whole community around hardcore.
Yeah.
And I got really excited about it, and I noticed that I didn't get I don't know, it's fun, I enjoy it, but I didn't get that oomph out of it that I get from, and I noticed that I do get it from raid leading.
Didn't scratch the itch.
It didn't scratch the itch for me, and I don't think it's like I have to be in control kind of thing. I don't like that. I actually like giving out control to more people. I just really like seeing a unit like improve.
Yeah,
it's almost like, this is really reductive, but it's like a Farmville kind of thing, right? You kind of like, or like those, what are those kind of like Age of Empires, right? Where you build your
RTS games.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, but on like a people scale, and it's like, it's the whole seeing everyone come together and do a job and do it right. And then this person did better this week, and they know how to do the mechanic now. Like, I don't know, it's really fun for me. I really enjoy that, and
I agree.
Yeah.
What would you say? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
What would you say your leadership style is?
It's very open.
Okay.
The number one is delegation. Like, that's my number one rule, is delegation. So, anyone who thinks they can do a whole thing themselves is just wrong, right? You run a 40-man guild yourself is crazy. You have to find the type of people who want to have leadership roles, not for their own personal gain, but because they care, right? So it's very easy to find people who want to have a leadership role because they think they're going to get more loot. A lot of people, you can pinpoint those people pretty quickly.
Yeah.
What I look for is for people who come to me with suggestions to improve the raid as a whole. And if I see that more often coming to me in PMs and stuff like that, I'm like, this person's a good candidate for an officer. And that's how we structured our officer corps, is by people who originally, we had an original officer corps that did not work very well for us. And everyone who stepped up after that were because they just came from the raider position and moved up. Very, very few of our officer corps right now have been officers since day one.
Yeah. A few of our officers in the beginning were just people who joined the raid like first. So they were given kind of at first the structure was right, but maybe they were trying to structure the raid, but they definitely weren't someone that could delegate. And unfortunately, one of our first raid leads, I think, was more concerned about gearing himself more than the raid, and that ended pretty quickly, I would say. But I think what Melderon really does well too is I think he motivates people really well. So by giving those delegations and by giving those people that authority, I think it really motivates people to say, hey, this is also my raid and I care about it. So I think that's one thing that he does well, is that he definitely motivates people into to wanting to get better. You know what I mean?
I also do everything's democratic, right? Like, very rarely will I ever be like, this is how it's going to be done. Like, unless it's something egregious, like, I'm trying to give an example. Like, say someone said something political in one of the Discords, I would just say, don't say anything political. Like, I don't go, that doesn't need a vote, right? But if something is like, hey, someone came to me and said, hey, I have an issue with the loot prios. And then I say, let's have a meeting. And I say, this is what I think should be done. What do you guys think? And if I'm outvoted, I'm outvoted, right? Like, I don't pull the whole, I'm the GM, this is how it's going to go thing. Because number one, people will start to resent you. They'll start to question if you know what you're talking about. And I don't want that. And that's how anything should be run. It should be a democratic thing, right? Like, I don't want to be a tyrant or a king or something like that.
Yeah, it's exhausting to be that too. Like, because if you can't trust anyone, you can't really. If you don't trust people and they don't trust you, you can't really delegate. And if you can't really delegate, there's just so much to do. I gave a go to running a 40-man raiding guild in vanilla with a bunch of my friends, and I did the GM main tank thing, and we got up to Razor Gore, and I said, "Fuck this."
Yeah, dude,
it's not easy, bro.
Main tanks really, especially like the main tank raid leaders, because you got to think, like, first of all, they have to get, if anyone is getting world buffs, they have to get like every world buff, especially nowadays, right? Because you have to hold threat. right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need that first. You need to get all your world buffs. Now you have to worry about everyone else in the raid. Now you have to worry about everything that's going on. If you're a GM and a main tank, it's a lot to deal with. So that's if you are doing that, you definitely need to delegate. I know some people that do it, like the GM at a Onslaught. Alkaiser, he's a freaking Faye. I'm sorry, Faye and Alkaiser, I'm sorry, but yeah, they have a lot of really good people there. And I think like they know how to delegate well, and you see a lot of these really big guilds that that are on the top, and they they know what they're doing. They have people that are in position, and they also have people that help them, right? So I think that's like one thing that I was part of a guild on a private server that was very much like the GM was the main tank, and he was the law, right? And we went through people so quick. I mean, we had so many people leaving and coming into that guild, and it was because he got all the gear first. People were fighting over gear, and it was just a mess. And it's like when you put one person in charge, it just seems like even if that one person is trying to do the best that they can, like it has that look of that, like this one person's trying to control everything, and it just doesn't have a good it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, and it doesn't sit well with me. You know what I mean? So it's a lot better to have a group of people working together to try to get the guild going. I don't really like when it's like all power in one person kind of thing.
Yeah, another thing is I don't think it's wise to, and this is going to work for some guilds, obviously, but I don't think it's wise to GM and raid lead. I think you should have. I think the GM position is more of a administrative position, whereas you're kind of looking at the comp, recruitment, making sure people are behaving properly, making sure that the chain of command is built in a certain way. Whereas the raid lead's job is to just worry about the raid, right?
Manage the encounters. Yeah,
exactly. Right. I think that's very smart, is to separate those roles.
Yeah.
Well, at least for me, but I don't know if that's how every guild runs, but that's how I'd like to run the guild. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things about World of Warcraft and other games like it is that this kind of stuff can happen. Like this. Yep. Actually, I see a lot of people who are drawn to leadership in WoW actually do kind of similar things in their own, like in their lives outside of WoW. Is this like a skill that comes from somewhere else for you guys, or is this just like something you really just do in WoW? What do you think?
I'm not in a management position now.
Okay.
I mean I'm a scientist, but I don't.
You're a scientist.
I am.
What kind of scientist? That's so cool.
I'm a geneticist, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I work on the genetics of addiction, specifically opioid addiction.
Yeah, okay. We actually it's a long. We actually kind of both work in the field. I think Melderon too. It being the healer role is like I went in and I got something called a CRS, which is like a certified recovery specialist. So I myself am in recovery. Interesting. So I've always kind of liked the role of like being able to help people as well. So I don't know if that would kind of goes along with being a healer or what, but and I think Melderon as well. I mean, he's in that field as well. But Melderon definitely does look at everything, I think, very scientifically. Especially with his guides as well. Yeah.
So I've never actually held a position. Well, I mean, maybe. I mean, like I've managed students. I've managed personal data. I think that's kind of where I maybe get the skill from. But I look at everything quantitatively. But I don't think I just have a quantitative side. I think I have pretty good people skills. I think I don't know. Defcamp could say if I don't or not. I think I.
No, you do. Yeah,
pretty good on that. I'm not just all right. Well, I forget which one. I'm not
right
just
brain,
all
left brain.
Yeah.
Left brain, logical. Right brain, creative. Right.
Right. So I'm not all left brain, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I'm not actually an expert in math at all. I mean, I use math a lot, but I'm not a math head. So, I guess I've been in school for a very, very, very long time.
Off and on, like almost 20 years,
than I should have been.
God, better you than me, man.
I did 4 years of undergraduate. Decided that I hated what I was doing. I was criminal justice actually first.
Huh.
Then I was like, I don't like this. I want to do science. I like science better. Went to a school to get my master's, and they're like, well, you don't have the prerequisites for a master's in biology. So take 3 more years of undergraduate. So I did 7 years of undergraduate.
Oh my God.
2 years of master's, and then 4.5 for my PhD. So I've been in school for a long time. So maybe that's what it is. I don't, maybe it's just I like structuring things. I like data analysis. That's what I do all day.
Mm-hmm,
Maybe that's why I have the skills to rate.
Sometimes I think, like I kind of put out there a possibility that like maybe it's more relevant to me, where like I'm like for me doing the podcast is kind of has a little bit of a symmetry with what I'm doing in the real world, in my own life outside of gaming. It's not the way for everybody though when it comes to the way they engage with games. Sometimes I think people engage with games in a way that they can't engage with the world, which is a completely legitimate and very good way to I don't want to say use gaming, but let's just say engage with games. And there's a whole wide discussion to be had there about that. But you guys touched on something very interesting a couple minutes ago that I wonder if I can come back to. And if you don't want to go there, that's fine. But I heard you say that you are a geneticist, Melderon, working on the fields of opioid addiction. And I heard you say, Defcamp, that you are a certified counselor. I can't remember what word you used.
Recovery specialist. Yeah.
Recovery specialist dealing with opioid addiction. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'm also in recovery myself. So I've been clean for about 6 years. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's something that's very I think
that's a very interesting family dynamic. Is there like is there a story there that you guys are comfortable telling, or is it just like independently?
Yeah,
okay.
No, I'm very open about it. Yeah,
mine's
so
much shorter. So let me start and then you can. I want you to hammer yours home. But basically, the reason I'm in this line of work, originally my PhD is in insect genetics, so it's completely different from this. But when I moved back to Philadelphia after my my PhD, I was looking for jobs, and I use actually Matt's story as inspiration, because the beautiful thing about genetics is no matter what animal you are, human or fruit fly, we all have DNA. We all have the same types. All the rules are the same basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really take what you learn from a model system and apply it to humans. So I use Defcamp's story as an inspiration to kind of look for jobs. And one of the, when I was applying for positions, one of my possible kind of like things I could have done was working in addiction. So I got, I had the passion for it from Defcamp, and I was like, maybe I'll design a project around this. And that's why I work in addiction now. So I didn't go to school for this. I just kind of applied myself to it.
Got it. So you applied what you had towards that problem, and that's what you're pursuing now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was primarily because of inspiration and what Defcamp has done in his life. So so you can go. I just wanted to caveat that real quick before you start. Yeah.
Take the stage, Defcamp.
Yeah. So I guess where do I start? So I have ever since I was younger, had problems with addiction. At the time I was like 12 years old. I was already basically an addict, like using, whether it was pot, alcohol. When I was 13, I broke my leg, and I already had I already had some, just issues that kids have. Maybe like I have Tourette's. I have some other stuff. So I always felt like I was very prone to looking for escapes and stuff like that. So when I was 13, and also we have addiction in our family on both sides, my dad and my uncles. So very prevalent in our family and in our environment as well. So yeah, when I was 13, I broke my leg and was given opiates for the first time. And it was like something switched in my brain, for the first time, is like, I need to have this all the time. So I had struggled with addiction basically from that point on. I went to my first rehab when I was like 18. and went to multiple rehabs, multiple psych wards, and all this, crazy shit. And then, after a while, Melderon, we come from a family where it's basically me, my brother, and my mom. So we were really tight knit. And they had always, been there and helped me. And finally, when I was about 26, I would say, I had, people in recovery talk about like the moment of clarity or a time when you really, because I had gone to rehab before. I had really tried other times to get clean. And something in me was just, I had basically hit, you say you hit rock bottom, and then you go even lower and lower and lower, and you figure out that like there really is, the ultimate low. And I kind of got to that point.
There are multiple rock bottoms, huh?
Yeah, there definitely are. So I got to the point where I had basically lost everything, and was basically on, the only other options were, taking my life or getting clean. Like that was,
wow.
And that was at the road where I was at. And I had tried getting clean multiple times, and I didn't think it was going to be possible for me, but I had that moment where I said that this is it for me. Like I have to try to take control of my life. And fortunately for me, I did. I know a lot of people don't get to that. A lot of people, unfortunately, don't get to that point. They unfortunately, pass before that happens. I have a lot of friends that have died from addiction. It's really bad in this area, opiate addiction in particular.
In the Philadelphia area?
In the Philadelphia area, it's extremely bad here. So yeah, fortunately for me, I found something that worked for me. I had kind of, tried every other option, and I had tried all these different things, and I kind of just finally, for whatever reason, said this is it, and ended up getting clean. Moved to another part of the country for a while just to get out. People, places, and things is a big part
change of scenery
of whether it's any kind of addiction. So I changed scenery for a while, got into a relationship where, unfortunately, towards the end of the relationship, my significant other had started using again.
Oh man.
So I came back home before I had relapsed. Fortunately, I did not. I came back home and kind of fell into, but by going to where I was going there for counseling and stuff like that, had really just found that I, for my own sake, for my own recovery, and a lot of people will say this, you keep what you have by giving it away or by helping other people. And I found out that one of the most beneficial things for me on my recovery was helping other people. And this is why I talk about it in my streams too, because like with the whole Corona thing right now, I my CRS thing is not, I had worked there for a couple years, but now I talk about it in my streams. I like to talk about it wherever I am, just be able, if someone hits me up on Discord or just wants to talk about it, for me, that's what really helps me, is just helping other people in this, in their addiction, or if they just want to talk or anything like that. So, I had started working as a certified recovery specialist, which is basically suited for people that are in recovery to help those that are, trying to get clean and stuff like that. So,
Word.
Yeah, and then Melderon had obviously had always been there for me during my struggles and shit like that. So he really was, like I said, my family was really tight knit. My mom, my brother, and he had been through a lot of it. And I think for us, it was a really big part of our lives. And one thing that's interesting, and I talk about this a lot, is that WoW was, every time I would either get clean or I would get out of rehab, video games was something that a lot of times was an escape for me, a good escape. You know what I mean? I would get clean, and instead of going back out there and calling friends and do whatever, I would play WoW, and I would get into these conversations with people, and I would meet people online, and some of the people that I met online, I consider some of my best friends. Especially now. So WoW has always been a really good outlet for me, and I know a lot of people also in recovery that has kind of helped me throughout the years, and has really, you can ask Melderon. I was not the kind of person that would come on a show, talk or stream or do anything like that, and just by playing WoW and talk to people, it really helped me come out of my shell. And so something for me that I think I got a lot out of it. Whether it was just the social aspect of the game. That's why I love WoW so much. I think it's
a positive
really
change of environment almost. It sounds like
absolutely. So yeah, I mean that's kind of the whole story there. But it's interesting how much WoW has played a really integral part in all of that. I think for Melderon too. I think I know he can probably attest to this as well. Is like a lot of the people that we have met in this game are people that we talk to every day. People that we call our friends, and especially when you look at people like in the community as well, like Cargos and Grays. These are friends of ours. These are people that we talk about all this kind of stuff with, and it's through this game that we met all those people. So it's pretty amazing how a game like WoW can change your life like that. So yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
that's quite a story.
Yeah, I tried to rush through it pretty quickly there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple questions from along the timeline. And if at any point you guys don't feel comfortable like going there, just say, "Hey, let's move on." No problem. So I don't have I've considered myself at various times to be addicted to video games. That's a very different thing from a physical addiction.
Right.
And I wonder, Melderon, if you could say a little bit about what it was like to kind of be supportive of your brother when he was struggling with this. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. It was a difficult time for sure. Before he got clean, after he got clean, it's easy to support. It's easy to support someone when they want to do good for themselves, right?
Right. The idea that people will stop for someone on the road who's pushing their own car. People want to help people who are helping themselves.
Yeah. But before that, it was difficult. Like, it's primarily for two reasons. Like, no one really knows what it's like to be addicted to a substance, right? So our father was an addict as well. So when I was growing up, my parents split up because of his addiction, and I had an understanding of it a little bit, but I didn't, maybe more than most. And that's why I think most people look at addicts as criminals, or they're weak, or whatever you want to call it, is because they don't get it, right? I had a little bit of a step into that door. So I didn't feel that way, but I also didn't understand it, right? And those are the two parts of it. Or understand my role in what's the word? Allowing someone to do something to themselves.
Enablement?
Yeah, enablement. Thank you. How you may enable the situation, right? So what I did was I actually started going to 12-step. So there's 12-step programs for family members too.
Okay.
Most people probably don't know that, but so you not only
12 steps being like made famous by like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous.
It's called Al-Anon.
Yeah, Al-Anon. Okay. Yeah.
So my way of supporting Defcamp was actually finding out what the hell I was doing wrong. And how my dad's addiction affected me as a child, and how it affected me as an adult. So I really couldn't support him until I was getting better in my head, doing the things for me. So
what did that take?
It was tough. So my mom started to go, right? So my mom started to go to these things because of Defcamp's addiction, and she was like, "Hey, you need to do this." And I'm like, "Why the hell do I need to?" That's your initial gut reaction is, "Why the hell do I need to do?"
Yeah,
this?
why do I need
my
to change?
problem.
He's the one that needs to change. Exactly. Yeah.
But it helped big time. Not only did it help me, but it helped my interactions with Defcamp. So he knew that I wasn't playing the game anymore, because this whole thing is addiction. All these things, really, what it is when you get down to it, like from a psychiatric level, is this dance everyone does. It's this weird dance everyone has a part in, and it all stems from childhood. It all and genetics, and a lot of things are put into it. But it's environment and genetics have equal, sometimes even depending on the person. And so it's really hard for an addict to get clean if their family's not doing the right thing either.
Absolutely.
So all those things coming together, I think allowed Defcamp to realize that he wasn't doing the right thing, right? And that's when he wanted to get clean. When my mom and I were getting more intelligent about the thing, about what
kind
was
of
going
things did you guys modify that kind of improved the environment and set the stage for that?
Boundaries is a big one, right? So the biggest thing for me was if Defcamp came home high, I would just be like, all right, let's go into your room. Let's make sure you're okay. Let's put the covers over you, and what do you need? What can I do for you?
Yeah.
Every family member would think that's what you do as a family member,
love.
right?
Yeah.
That's love, right? It's not. It's enablement, and it's it's telling that person what you're doing to yourself is okay. I can handle it. But no sane person can handle that. Like, no sane person can see someone that they love dying, basically, is what it is.
If there's no consequences to what I'm doing, then why would I stop?
Yeah.
Right? If nothing happens, if I do something horrible, if I come home high and I, steal whatever, and nobody says anything, why am I not going to do it again? So one thing that I, tell people that are in recovery now is that, addiction isn't just the disease of that person. It's a family disease, and it takes a family usually to, get help together. Right. So, like I always tell people, is like the best thing that my family did for me was to get educated and to, and that ended up having some pretty horrible consequences for me at the time. I got kicked out of my house. I, didn't have any, I was homeless for a while, didn't have anywhere to go.
Wow.
But that was them having boundaries that
setting a boundary,
told me that, right. And, a lot of people say, well, it's tough love. Well, there's a difference between, just having, like, say, tough love and actually, having those boundaries, because in all effects, like, I was killing myself, but I was also killing my family, in a way. Like, my mom and my brother were really, losing it, completely. When you do, the kind of things that, addiction, using the drug is just the small part of it. It's the things that happen because of that, right? It's the stealing, the lying, the getting arrested, the, overdosing, all these things that happen that are really the core issues that, cause families to break down and for all these things to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's where it ends up, but that's not where it starts.
Exactly. And and you always hear, well, why can't you just stop? Why can't you just stop? Why can't you just stop? And what I tell people is, in addiction, when you're fully addicted to a substance, your brain actually changes the way it works, right? So your brain literally tells your body that without this substance, you are going to die. And that's what withdrawal is, right? Your withdrawal is your brain telling your body that without this substance, you're going to die. And even though, or at least in opiate addiction, it's not always, it can be fatal, but, in alcohol addiction and other addictions, it actually, is fatal sometimes to withdraw without some kind of medication. It's that fear of that, that getting sick and not feeling normal. Not, for me, I hadn't gotten high in years. To me, getting high every day was just feeling normal, right? I didn't really get high until, like, one of the first times that I actually used, and I felt like, oh, this feels amazing. After that, it's just feeling normal. And when they start to understand that, and they start to understand that, he's not trying to, he's just trying to survive. And I have learned, these are my coping mechanisms. My coping mechanism was, when shit happened, I got high. You know what I mean? I got high to deal with life, because I couldn't deal with life without being high. It doesn't mean you're weaker. It doesn't mean that you're, not as strong as someone who doesn't have that. Most people in addiction have some kind of either mental, unfortunately, a lot of people have, depression, anxiety. A lot of people who in addiction, more times than any, have very traumatic things that has happened to them. And people cope in different ways, and a lot of ways that addicts cope is through use. So when Melderon and my mom learned all this stuff, and I basically stopped relying on them for money, for everything, it told me that, hey, there's consequences for my actions, and I can't just rely on everyone else, or I can't just manipulate people into getting what I want anymore. So it took a
I'm
while.
not going to be
and
okay if I keep doing this.
Exactly. And it took a while to sink in, maybe about a year or so for, once they started. But after a while, the only thing I knew I could rely on my mom and my brother for was for them to help me when I was ready to get clean, right? That was the one thing I knew I could rely on them for. Not for money, but the fact that I knew I could rely on them, that's what saved my life, right? That's what allowed me to get clean. And, when I tell people and, parents, anyone's listening to this, is like, if there's one thing, if you have a loved one that is going through it, the one best thing you can do for them is, learn how to set those boundaries. But when they're ready to try to get clean, just be there for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that time, that's the best thing.
That sucks to like literally like put your hands up in the air and say it's like that. I don't want to get into religion, but how Christianity, it's one of those things where it's like, just let it go and give it to God. That's literally what you have to do with your loved one. And that's really, really hard to do, right? Like it's like, oh, just let him sit. He's on the streets. Well, just let him. It's so hard, right?
I can't imagine.
Everything in evolution tells you not to do it, right?
Yeah.
Evolution tells you take care of your kin. You have the same DNA. You have to take care of that person. And for a mother, it's like 100 times worse, right? So it's like for a mother, it's like this. I carry this child, like I have to, and you have to literally say no to all of your natural instincts, and that's very, very hard.
Become completely unattached from what happens to that person.
Yeah, that's, in a way. Yeah,
Defcamp said is huge. Like up to people who use opioids in a way that's illicitly or using prescribed opioids in a way that are not intended, of those individuals, as high as 90% have a comorbid, meaning coexisting, mental health disorder. 90%. That includes like depression, anxiety, OCD, anything you could think of. If we lump all of these things into a number, about 90. So most studies show it's near 90%. So these people are self-medicating. Is what they're doing.
Exactly.
It's not like it's a they're just degenerates.
Like I just want to get high. Like I just want to feel great all the time.
No one wakes up in the morning and says, "I want to be a heroin addict." No one says that, right?
Yeah.
So
in a way, the addiction, when it starts out, is a cure to a problem.
It is
absolutely,
and it ends up consuming the problem that it solved, right?
Yes, and creates numerous other problems.
Damn. That's crazy.
But and it's I'm sorry, I just wanted to
go on.
The one thing that there's been a ton of things that have helped me along the way. My family, the most was my family, but finding healthy outlets, finding healthy things to because a lot of people have a really big struggle is that when they stop using is that they're bored, right? They have to stop talking to all their friends that they got high with. They maybe can't work because they have convictions or they can't find this or find that, and they're living home with their parents or whatever. So it's trying to find healthy things to get motivated about, because when you stop using, basically your brain stops making dopamine on your own when you start injecting heroin, and it starts relying on that dopamine from the heroin. So many people in early recovery are depressed because your brain literally isn't producing enough dopamine to keep you normal. So that's why we see so many people relapse in that first year, which is really pivotal. And finding something to motivate you and to help you feel good about yourself is really important. And for me, one of those things was actually WoW, and playing WoW and having that outlet and, feeling good and, having friends in the game. And I don't think, it's might sound silly, but I can't really underplay how important, this game has been for me over the years. Right. And being able to talk to people, relate with people, and slowly come out of my shell and feel okay with being me, right? And that really happened through playing WoW. And I think a lot of people find that outlet in other ways, and for a lot of people I have talked to, WoW has been that thing for them as well. So and it's such a different kind of game, right? Because you're kind of, especially in Classic WoW, you're kind of forced to talk to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in retail, you can get away with doing stuff, by yourself. But in Classic WoW, you're almost forced at times to do stuff with other people.
Yeah.
And it was that push that I was given, that little push to hey, talk to this person to really help me come out of my shell.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so interesting in how that really helped me, just giving that little push to say, hey, you know what, just whisper this guy, ask him for help. Next thing you know, I'm talking with this guy about, the last 10 years of my life. And he's telling me about, his deployment in Iraq and how he got addicted to this, that, and the other. It's a true story. It's really
all because you asked for mage food.
All because I asked. Yeah, exactly. Literally because of that. And, it's I can't underplay just how important that was. Yeah.
That's quite the rounded story. Bring it back to WoW.
Yeah.
Before we go back to WoW, though, I want to ask another question, if I may, about that experience. And again, from your perspective, Melderon. So you talked a few moments ago about what it was like before Defcamp started getting help, and then about the boundaries and how I'm sure that must have been very difficult. I'm sure how elated you felt when Defcamp started getting help. What's it like seeing how things have progressed now? I just think it's a really kind of very interesting story to see you guys, two brothers, working on healing yourselves and each other and your guildmates. It's a headline that writes itself, I feel like. What's your perspective on how where things have ended up with Defcamp?
I mean, to be honest, he's really broken a lot of odds. I mean, like there's not many people that could say they got clean, they were able to work in that field and help people who are trying to get clean. I what else can you say? I mean, what else can you say? I mean, like it's. I hate to use the word miracle because I don't think I don't know, but it really kind of is. I mean, like the odds of someone getting clean is low, and staying clean for as long as he did is low. What's it like 5%, something like that?
It's very low
for as long as you've been clean.
Yeah.
So you started using Defcamp at the age of, you said it was like 12 or 13?
13 was when I started my first opiate use, yeah.
And you said you've been clean for 6 years. I'm not trying to put an age on you, but how long were you using for?
Off and on about 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
More than half your life at that point.
Yeah.
That does sound pretty amazing.
I mean, we're still brothers. We still get each other's throats, right? Like, I'm not saying it's perfect.
That's what brothers do. Let's be honest.
Exactly,
I got one too. I know what you mean.
But to be able to reconcile things with him and know that, he's still going to be there for me. And I mean, like, we're not just brothers. We're best friends as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's, what I mean? Like, the relationship I have with my brother is very, like, I didn't really have my dad there growing up. I had my big brother, you know what I mean? And I didn't really have, my mom was working like 2-3 jobs. I had my brother, like, it's almost like, it's hard to describe, but like, we do everything together. We do. And I mean, it's awesome. It is.
Yeah. Part of the really shitty thing about being an analytically minded person is to be honest, I was preparing for the opposite. So, because I looked at what was happening, and I did research myself, and it's like odds are they're going to wind up in jail or dead, back and forth from rehab their whole life. All these things, and I'm just like,
yeah. And I was very close. I mean, there was a reason for him, because there was a point where I was, basically waking up and hoping that I was going to overdose. Like, there was a long time that was my reality, and they were basically having to get ready for that reality, because it was going to come. I was in the hospital for months because I had gotten an infection in my leg. Which I was like basically hours away from basically going septic and dying from that.
Holy shit.
And just so many other things. I was in a psych ward for almost a month, where I was in a drug-induced psychosis, and they thought I was never going to come out of that.
Holy crap!
Yeah. So
what's drug-induced psychosis? What does that mean?
Basically, I lost my mind. I didn't know what reality was. I thought I was in a coma or I was dead, and I was constantly I was literally, almost like stuck in a trip where you don't know. I didn't know what reality was. I thought I was seeing people. I was having conversations with people that weren't there. I was trying to kill people. I was trying to jump out of windows. I was basically strapped down to a bed 24/7 for.
This is all because he took a combination cocktail of different. This wasn't even opioids that caused this, correct?
I was on opiates, but it was at one point I was basically a trash can. I was taking everything that I could get my hands on, and I had taken some synthetic marijuana. I had taken almost a very large amount of benzos, probably about 40 to 50 pills or in a day, and all these different other drugs that I was on, which led to me going into the psychosis that basically lasted. Even when I was out of the psych ward, I still wasn't sure what reality was, and it lasted.
How did it come back to you?
Time.
Was it like a gradual thing, or did it just snap in one day?
Very gradual. Yeah, no, it was gradual because towards the end of my stay at the psych ward, I was just playing along with what I thought I needed to do to get out.
Playing the part.
I still thought that I was, somewhere else.
Although being able to pass is not crazy, is perhaps an indicator that there's something not crazy underneath.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think my reality did start to come back to me very slowly though. But losing my mind, that for me was probably the most traumatic experience, especially during my addiction, because there were times where I thought that I was like. It's hard to describe, right? Because I thought that everyone in my family was dead and their skin was hanging from my walls. I thought that I had killed someone. I thought that they were coming in to torture me. I thought that all these things were happening just as real as me talking to you right now. Like it's so hard to describe to what psychosis is, because people think that, some part of you must know that it's not real. But literally every part of me believed what was happening is as real as what's happening right now. And that's how scary it is. And
that's scary for you too, Defcamp, sitting on the sidelines? I mean, sorry, Melderon. Melderon.
Oh yeah, so when I went and visited him at this mental institution or whatever it was, I remember walking up to him and giving him something, and he just looked through me, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's really hard to explain. Like before that point, I've never seen someone totally out of touch with reality in my life. Like, never seen that before, right? Imagine going up to your loved one, your wife, and saying hey, honey, how you doing? And she's like, who are you? Like, that's like out of the blue, right? And you're just like, it was hard.
It
was
very,
very hard. Yeah. And the horrible thing about it is that the doctors there didn't communicate with us very well. Apparently this is normal when you take that much of a substance.
Yeah, and they just gave me a bunch of other drugs to take. And they said they prescribed me bipolar while I was in there in a drug-induced psychosis. Which I don't know how they. Yeah.
And then finally, my dad was like, my dad had said something to them, and they were like, oh yeah, he'll come out of it eventually. It's just this is Bob, and he's like, well, when are you going to tell us that? Because when your loved one's in a psych ward, you don't really know what's going to happen after that. Like, are they in there the rest of their life? Who knows? So it was a very challenging time.
Yeah,
for sure. And like Def said, but that wasn't the last time, and Def had to get to that point where he was ready to want to get help, and he eventually got there. But it was a roller coaster ride for sure. It sucked. Yeah, it was tough.
Wow.
Yeah,
quite an experience. And so okay, so you got to the point and where you were ready to start recovering. And can you connect that event with when you started realizing how WoW was going to help you do that?
Yeah, I think at first, it wasn't a direct link at first, because even when I was still, because I had times of sobriety before, short bursts of sobriety, where either I had, I was always addicted to something. I feel like I would get clean and I would immediately get into a relationship, and that woman was like my new addiction almost. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
NRE, baby, it's good.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very. It took a lot for me to kind of find out how to have that healthy balance. You know what I mean? Which is still something that I struggle with today. You know what I mean?
I can relate.
Yeah. So
I'm up late at night talking about video games. My wife's in the other room, so yeah, I get it.
Exactly. So yeah. So at first, it was basically that little escape, and then it began to once I. Oh, sorry, we just got an Amber Alert.
Oh.
Once I had gotten clean, it was very much like trying to find that balance and trying to find out how to do this in a healthy way. Because I remember when back in TBC was like one of the first times I had gotten clean. I literally played TBC like 24/7. Like I did not do anything else but play WoW. I was like, I'm gonna get do every raid. I'm gonna get 2,300 rating on my priest, and I'm gonna do all this and that. And I definitely played WoW to an even an unhealthy extent. You know what I mean?
Unhealthy even for you at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but as I got older, and as I started to understand my addiction, it was something that I could, see where, okay, if I'm going a little bit too far into this, or if I'm losing myself into this again, because relapse and addiction is something it's more of a state of mind than it is actually picking, like, it starts with a thought process, right? And that thought process is oh, I can just do this for a little bit, or I can do that and it's going to be okay. And it's basically going back into those old habits. And so much of recovery is changing those old habits, finding new ways to cope with things. So for me, it was finding out, okay, I love this game and I want to play it, but I don't want it to consume my life again, right? So I'm finding a healthy way to do that, and still having healthier outlets, and not making it my one and only thing. Something that's great with content creation is it allows me to still have that game, but do it in a healthy way where I'm being constructive, I'm being either whether I'm streaming, I'm maybe making money or doing whatever, you're still being constructive, and you're doing something that is bettering yourself, and having those goals. And something for me was important is to have those goals, right? I wanted to go back to school and get my CRS. I wanted to get confident enough to be able to stream, and gaining that confidence and doing those things was definitely easier to do when I started to play WoW in a way where I was comfortable to talk to people, but also still have my reality where I was I built a relationship again with my mom and my brother. I never really had a normal relationship with my mom and my brother. I never really talked to them, you know what I mean? So
you had a lot
building
of
those
catching up to do, I bet.
Yeah, I had a lot of catching up to do, man. When you get addicted, you pretty much turn your brain off to where you were when you I was a 13-year-old kid, basically, and I had to basically learn how to do all these things again, and how to do it in a way that wasn't unhealthy. So yeah, I definitely think that WoW helped me in a lot of ways, that I was able to learn how to have healthy relationships with people. And one thing for me was really important was having commitments. So if I committed myself to something back before, that meant nothing to me. You know what I mean? It meant nothing to me that I told someone that I was going to be there for a podcast that, or whatever, or it meant nothing to me that I told someone I was going to do something for them. So one thing for me was if I'm going to sign up for this raid or whatever, I'm going to make sure that I come, and I'm going to make sure that I do it. I'm going to make sure that
prepared. You have consumables.
and I'm prepared, and I have my consumes, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being prepared for commitments for me was a really, it was like a new frontier. So that was something that I kind of explored through WoW. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's.
And did that then percolate out to through the rest of your life too?
Yes, absolutely. So if I committed to going to and speak at someone's meeting, you know what I mean, or to help someone with something, I made sure that I did that, and that people knew that when I put my word to something and I said I was going to do something, that I was going to do it. I mean, it's obviously something that I'm, still working on. I'm sure that everyone works on that kind of stuff, but it's something that I know now that when I put my mind to something and I say that I want to do something, I want to follow up with that. And as before, that was something that I never did, and I still struggle with that now. But I think I'm a lot better where I was than where I was.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've managed to find an environment where you were able to learn some new strategies to handle the feelings that maybe when you were a kid, let's be honest, would have driven you to use.
Absolutely.
So if you felt uncomfortable, but by doing the kind of scene shift over to, Nagrand or insert Burning Crusade zone here.
Zanger Marsh, or
one of the classics.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it's like the stakes are different. They don't feel as serious. You also can kind of detach yourself from the results a little bit too, knowing that like these things are happening to your character. And although everyone is their character, at least a little bit, you can practice detachment more easily. Sounds like.
Yep, absolutely. And I think looking back at that now, that was definitely something that helped me, right? Because at the same time, it felt good, but I knew that like, hey, this is it was like doing a model version of it first, right? Like having that little model version and then doing the real thing later. So it just taught me how to do these things, and it was almost like I was going to school for it, or schooling, like just prepping myself for the real world.
Yeah.
Which is really cool when you have a game that has its own world, right? Because you have a lot of these things, how to manage money, right? Like I remember I would just, every time I get gold, I would spend it. You know what I mean? I would, I gotta buy this thing, which I still really, I spend gold on my alts way too quickly. Melderon can attest to this. I buy them friggin' epics and shit, but I like to have, I like to have my good epics and stuff like that. Just like
they deserve it, right?
New pair of shoes or something, right? Exactly. But at least I have 3,000 gold now or something like that, whereas before I would have 3 gold, so I'm managing my money a little bit better.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's all about the baby steps, right?
Exactly.
So you got into WoW, and then I heard, so this was 6 years ago, you said. That would have been about 2014. Was Nostalrius rocking it this time?
I believe it was, right?
Okay.
Melderon? I don't know if Nost was, but I know there was...
2016 was Nost, I believe. Yeah.
So I actually started with a TBC private server. Was it Phoenix WoW? Or I did one that before Warmain, and then I started playing on Warmain, and then I started playing on classic private servers like Lights Hope, Northdale...
Chronos.
I had a Chronos, right? But Melderon had started on classic private servers. I have always been and always will be like TBC is my ultimate.
That's
classic is right there.
That's your nostalgia hit right there. Yeah.
Yeah, TBC is mine. Like I love classic, but when I really started to enjoy the game for me was TBC.
Got it.
So, I loved playing on those TBC private servers as well. Yeah.
So why the jump from retail WoW over to those private servers? What inspired you guys to do that?
For me, so this was during WoD.
Warlords of Draenor.
You stopped at WoD, yeah.
Yeah, so WoD was like WoD was an expansion that kind of there wasn't a lot there, right? It was very boring. I really, really hated the
garrisons.
Yes, that's it.
Because everyone was there at their garrison. Yeah.
And I was really bored, and something told me to kind of look up something. Like I wish I could play Vanilla WoW again. And I opened up a Google tab and was like, I want to play. How do I play Vanilla WoW? And the Rebirth came up, which was like really old school classic vanilla private server. So I started playing on that one, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. The only thing with the Rebirth, it was kind of low population, it was a little buggy. And then someone on the Rebirth was like, oh, there's this thing called Nostalrius, and I'm like, what? So then I went on Nostalrius, and I was like floored.
That was the real deal.
Yeah. Like you could play Vanilla WoW. I'm like, oh my god, old school Tearsfall Glades, old school Orgrimmar, all these things that I missed because, after the Cataclysm, everything was changed so drastically. So I made my first character, which was a undead warrior, and I started my whole adventure all over again. And when NOS got shut down, eventually, I was like really angry and pissed, and that's when I started the channel. Was literally because of that. And then I went to Kronos, and then I went to Light's Hope, and then I think I played on a total of like 7 private servers or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I know I'm asking an obvious question with an obvious response here, but what was it about shutting down Nostalrius that pissed you off?
There was an obvious group of people who weren't happy about the way things were in retail and wanted to kind of relive their childhood, teenage years, early 20s for me. Kind of wanted to relive. Yeah. Wanted to relive that part of their life and kind of like go back to the more, and it is simpler. It is a simpler world. Yeah. It's you can find idiosyncrasy and complexity in vanilla. There's theorycraft pages abound, but it was something about like just being raw, like dying to 2 mobs. Finding a blue was like life changing. Yeah. Finding a green was huge. All these things and the fact that Blizzard was like, nah, F you got to play retail or you can't. Like, this is illegal, which it was. It's intellectual property stolen essentially, But the fact that it was a French server or whatever, like a maximum of 10,000 people were playing on it. Like, come on, Blizz, and that's what really
a small thing.
Yeah. But if it wasn't for Blizzard shutting NOS down, I don't know if we'd be where we are today.
That's true.
So,
right. Yeah. So what BlizzCon was it where J. Allen Brack said, "You think you do, but you don't"? Was that 2017?
Believe that was in Mists, wasn't it?
Let me see if I can find.
I believe that was in MOP, if I'm not mistaken. MOP or WAD.
They announced Classic in 2018, I believe, and I think the "You Think You Do, But You Don't" was the year before that.
I think it was 2 years before. And maybe you're right. Yeah.
No, you guys probably got it better than I do. And when was NOS shut down?
So a video on YouTube was actually uploaded in 2016.
Okay.
So it might, I think so the YouTube published date was 2016. So I'm guessing it was a BlizzCon.
That's WAD. That's around WAD time. Yeah.
Okay. And, what was your feeling at the time about getting shut down and hearing things like "You think you do, but you don't"? And that was enough to get you into the content creation game. Or making content it's not easy. Like it's kind of a pain in the ass to start making content when you're starting off from just being a gamer. How
I had no idea.
Can you describe that?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never made a video in my life.
What was your first video?
It was It was literally
played, right? And It
was literally me explaining like the most basic things about, but like there are four races on each faction. Here they are, blah blah. But then it became a series of videos. It was actually like 10 videos long, each an hour, going over like a simple guide to how do you start playing Classic WoW.
Okay. It's kind of evangelizing it.
Yeah, basically, like this is what you need to do. This is what a hitbox is. All these things. And that's basically what I started. I researched how to do it, and I found like this is the time of Dodgy Kebab, Orc-Bit, Hamster Wheel, Alex Sensual, like the original Alex Sensual. All these are the only guys in the game, right? This was like the private server people.
Very niche at the time.
Yeah.
And I watched their videos, and I was like, okay, how do you, like, the first step was, how do I capture what's on my screen? Like, how do I do that? So I found OBS, which is free. Back then, OBS was just OBS. There wasn't OBS Streamlabs. It was just OBS.
Yeah.
And you just click the button, and you put the set in. My computer was a potato at the time. I just moved to Kansas for my PhD, and I had a really shitty computer, so it was like 30 frames per second maximum trying to record like what I was doing. and I just talked and recorded, no editing.
One take. Oh yeah.
Uploaded it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You hear me going, sniffling, everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, but it got views. Not a lot of views, but it got views. People watched it, and I was like, "Holy shit!" People watched what I put up.
Yeah,
and it was a niche community of private server people that were like, "Oh man, this is private server people." Like, "Hey, but oh well, let's keep playing." And that's what invigorated me to keep going, was that the fact that people were watching it. And eventually, I got better at video editing. And eventually I was like, well, maybe I should start making like certain types of videos that I want to make. Like, what about this type of video? What about a let's play? What about this? What about that? And I just kept messing around and it was just messing around.
Trying stuff.
Until I guess we start doing the Def Talk podcast, and that was like something different. Like, oh, this is an actual production with people on it, and and then like Cargos came into the game. Like Cargos reached out to us when we had like sub 5,000 subscribers and was like, hey, we should do something together. We should collab. We should do this. We should do that. Blah, blah. That was our ticket, because otherwise, like I wouldn't have, when you meet someone like Cargos and when you meet other people in the community, not only does it make you feel like, wow, this is awesome, but it also makes you up your game up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Because
Cargos
now
hustles.
He does.
Oh yeah.
But he also shows you how to hustle, right? He's like, this is how you improve this part of your thing. This is how you improve this.
He's a community guy.
Yeah. If it wasn't for that, even like way back in the day, Svan showed me how to like edit things on Streamlabs OBS so they would like be like shrunk and I can have panels and all these things. Like these guys who are big now,
back
like
when Espen was like only doing like private server stuff.
This is how we met all these guys was back then. Yeah, and it wasn't for those guys. Even Alex Central, I know he's out there, but he
helped us a lot. Yeah.
What's the story with Alex Central? I don't actually know that name.
He's just very outspoken.
He was one of the original four like private server dudes.
Got it.
Well, there's a lot more to Alex than that, I guess. Yeah.
But I was going to keep going, but like he was one of the private server dudes. Alex is like,
he's like a bear in a little cage.
He's very opinionated, and he tends to polarize his audiences.
Okay.
He's very outspoken. He's a showman a little bit as well. But he did watch our videos on his streams
and promoted them
and promoted us and said these are good videos, and I can't deny that helped us huge.
I think overnight we got like 3,000 subs or something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big signal boost.
Yeah.
His channel doesn't really exist anymore, but it did for a very long time. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But we were very much like there was
a big community game. It sounds like.
Yeah. But during that time, there were kind of like I mean, there still are, right? Like cliques, you know what I mean? And certain cliques didn't really mix with certain cliques. And we wanted to be like anti-click. We wanted to just talk to everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though some people didn't get along with other people, but there's a little political stuff sometimes when it comes to that. But I feel like a lot of that has kind of gone away now, and it's just everyone's kind of in it. Hopefully, I think so at least.
It feels together, like the classic community of creators and everything else is so much more huge. Like
exactly,
it's been massively legitimized by the introduction of Classic. Right.
Yeah.
Huge.
But yeah, I mean, and Melderon, at first I was playing Legion, and the only thing that was keeping me in Legion was my guild. I hated the fact that I was doing mythic dungeons and people were doing LFR and getting Titan Forge gear that was the same item level as I was, as mine. I hated the fact that there were so many issues that I hated about Legion. There were so many things about retail that felt wrong, that it didn't felt rewarding enough, that it didn't feel, like I was really, but I did like the challenge of the raids. I did like the challenge as a healer at least, but I was not connected with my character. I was not really having fun, and I was only there showing up for my guild, And Melderon, said, "Hey, Matt, like, listen, we know there's this
come to the wild
private server
side
stuff. Yeah, come to the dark side."
Yeah.
And so I did. And I actually started off with a TBC private server, and I was like, I'm gonna make my own channel. It's gonna focus on TBC pre stuff. And then he's like, "Dude, why don't we just merge our channels?" I was like, "Okay, fine, let's do that." So
originally, I was like, "You should make your own videos." And then after a while, we're like, "Why the hell do we have 2 different channels? This is stupid."
Yeah.
So then we just put everything on one. Like, it was very, very short lived. But at one point it was called Melderon TV or Melderon Gaming. It was Melderon Gaming, Melderon TV, and then it was Defcamp TV, and then we just said, let's just call it Defcamp Melderon TV. So then I don't know. Yeah, and then we just merged our very few videos that Def had, and we just kind of and then we started building it. We started building out from there. Like, yeah, but it was fun. I mean, content creation's a lot of fun. I wish I had more time to do more. I look at these guys Willie, he pumps videos out every week, sometimes multiple per week. Mad Season as well, Cargos. It's just like there's so many other things that I have to do with work and with, honestly,
running the guild. It's
just, I don't know. But it was never supposed to be, content creation was never supposed to be a job for me. It's always supposed to be a hobby. And that's what I want to keep it. I want to keep it a hobby because I feel like when it's your job, you start to resent things, and I don't want to resent my hobby. I don't want to I don't think that's true for everyone.
You don't want to make your passion a job.
Yeah, because I don't want to have to like sit there and be like, I have to do this today, or I won't be able to eat or pay my rent. Like, no, I can't. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I was talking to Cargos about this. I interviewed him like a month ago or so about he was telling about the tension of how, for me, I'm in baby stage of all this stuff. I've only been streaming this year. I've only been doing the podcast for this year. Still a very small audience, but like, and I have a 9 to 5. This is not my highest priority, but I love this. It's so fun. I can't stop doing it. And I have these moments of fantasizing about just doing this.
Me too, dude.
The idea of replacing my job, which is a good job, with this, it seems pretty impossible. And I shared that content with Cargos, and he's like, "Screw it, you can do it." You can do it. Here's some ideas, which sounds like is what you guys experienced with him too.
If you ever want to be talked into anything, just have he will make anything sound like the best idea, and that's good. That's great. He's a great. That's a positive force to have.
Yeah, very motivational.
He's a real activator, I feel like.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
He is.
He's a good blood.
But it's one of those things. Like it's like everything in life. If you want it, you gotta go for it and put it.
You gotta go for it, man. You gotta. And life is too short. Yeah.
And for me, it's like I could go all out beast mode and start like producing stuff every day. But I just feel, I know me, and I would get to a point where I'd be like, I would get burned out, and I just feel like, hey, I'd rather have that 9 to 5. Have this as an additional source of inspiration, not just income, but like inspiration and creativity.
Yeah.
The good thing is there's 2 of us, right? And I had taken a little break from streaming, but I plan on coming back. And the good thing is that if we both kind of Melderon does the videos and I do the streaming thing, we can kind of work together on
divide
that. So that's
and conquer.
Exactly. That's the good part about there being 2 of us. And we actually have a lot of stuff in the works for TBC. I know I'm really passionate about TBC. I know Melderon is. We both have videos, ideas, and things that we're working on for TBC. So I am sure there's going to be a big explosion of content from everyone, including ourselves. Once TBC is announced, which I hope is at this virtual BlizzCon.
Yeah, we'll see. When's that happening? Is it January?
February?
It's next year, though.
Right? Yeah, it's next year. Yeah.
After things settle down from Shadowlands and everything.
Shadowlands, yeah. Which I'm still very cautious about. A lot of people were getting really hyped about Shadowlands. I was always trying to be cautious about it. February 9th?
19th and
19th. Okay.
19th and the 20th. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
But that'll
be a moment. And but before I touch on that though, I want to ask you Def, what's your perspective on work-life balance for this stuff? How do you handle it? Is this a primary for you, or is it a passion?
So for me, I'm trying to make the transition into making it a primary.
Cool.
Yeah, because unfortunately, coronavirus has kind of affected my job very much. Whereas I couldn't really work on site anymore, so I was only taking calls through Zoom and stuff like that. And for me, I had some issues with just some personal stuff going on, and I want to try to give that push to myself to really start to get the streaming thing up and running. There's a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I want to try to achieve that I'm working up to. So hopefully for me, within the very near future, I can kind of make that dream a reality and become the goal that I have is to basically make this primary thing for me, because I do enjoy streaming a lot. But for someone like myself, where I do have some, like, I struggle with having Tourette's and stuff like that. Sometimes it can be challenging when you have a bunch of people watching you and you're having tics and stuff like that.
You can monetize Tourette's though. It's out there.
Yeah, I know.
There are
I know
examples.
Anita, sweet Anita, and stuff like that. But it's something that personally, for me, that I have to kind of like overcome and get move past. And I think I have. But it's weird with something like Tourette's. It can spark up, and like it's not that bad for a while, and then a certain time of year or whatever, it can spark back up and just have like really bad tics and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I was recently. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, I really want to like I said, I love streaming. I love the community that we have. We have an awesome community.
What do you love about streaming? What grabs you about it?
I really like just being myself, like on stream, and people accepting me for that. Like so I do have a lot of people that really support me and are very, very awesome people that come back and they'll watch no matter what I'm doing. I think for me is I want to try and make sure that the content that I'm putting, because like it's hard, right? Because I was doing the hardcore thing, but I'm also running a guild, and I was trying to find out like where's the balance, what can I do, and I was trying to it's weird with streaming, right? Because you want your content to be good, right? You want your content to be exciting. You want your content to be something that people are going to want to show up for over and over again. And whether you're doing something that you're passionate about or you're doing something that might not be, for me, sometimes setting up raid and doing all this other stuff, it might not be what people want to watch, right? So it's something that you try to figure out, okay, what's something that I like doing so that I'm not just putting on a play, right? Because I don't want to do that. I don't want to just stream whatever I'm doing and then not feeling like you're good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people see through it too.
Exactly. And so exactly. And I want to make sure that I'm actually enjoying myself when I'm streaming, and I'm doing something that I want to do. And I think that's very important for me, at least, right? I know there are streamers out there who can just flip a switch and put on a show and this and another. But for me, I you can ask Melderon. It's like you see what you get. I'm sometimes I curse like crazy. Sometimes I say stupid stuff, and sometimes I talk about whatever. But
that's what makes Twitch great, though.
Yeah, it is.
Authenticity is the name of the game.
Exactly. So that's something that I really strive for and want to continue to do. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to having some discussions about TBC. That's something that I really want to do very soon. Is have some TV, because before Classic WoW came out, I really enjoyed just discussing Classic and just talking about it. And there's a lot of things that I'm really passionate about come TBC that I want to see hopefully happen. And I don't want to see a lot of the same issues that we have in Classic now in TBC. When it comes to the faction balance and things like that. So there's a lot of things.
What do you think the biggest problems are in Classic right now? Sorry, big question.
Number one.
I want to hear from both you guys too.
Yeah. Well, number one of the biggest things I think from day one was the server sizes and the mega server sizes. I think there was a huge issue with not having enough servers at first and making those servers too big. I think that's why we had layering. I think that's why we have, so many bots that can hide in servers. Now we have these huge mega servers where you have 99% of Horde versus Alliance. So that, plus I feel like Blizzard isn't taking enough of an active role in Classic. I think that there's no reason why I should have to report a bot 17 times, you know what I mean, for like 17 different days that I see him. There's a lot of things that I feel like they could take a lot more seriously with Classic.
They just laid the gauntlet down on input broadcasting software. Is that what they call it?
Yes.
AKA multi-boxing.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that going to have an impact on bots?
Potentially.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
That's
not huge impact, but
a single bot, right? So, or maybe even if it is a single bot, because I think that. So someone in my guild knows a lot more about this than I do, and was trying to explain how it's going to affect most multi-boxers and a good amount of botters, but it won't affect every multi-boxer because there's ways you can do it without the software, apparently.
And then hardware.
Yeah, and then Blizzard made a statement: this multi-boxing is not bannable, right? Right after this, so it was like we banned a specific type of software. I
wonder why they did it then. What do you guys think?
I think Go ahead, Melderon.
I don't know.
I think it's to discourage it. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Maybe to discourage multi-boxing. I think they should take a little bit of a harder route on it. I think anytime you see 5 characters, doing the same, like, Fire Blast, multi-boxing in the traditional sense, right? Whereas you see, 5 people doing the same spell over, it's very easy to, see when someone's kind of using it to exploit the game, right? Whether it's, killing an entire raid, or whether it's, just farming out this entire zone with multi-boxers, farming out, strat, or I'm sorry, Scholomance for like runes and shit like that. I think there's a really big problem in that terms, like where, you can see that someone by having 5 accounts is more powerful than someone that only has 1. It's a pay to win, aspect of the game that I don't think should be allowed at all. So I don't know if they're only doing it to try to discourage multi-boxers, but I think they should just put a hard hammer down and just not allow. I think multiple accounts is okay, like that's fine, but using multiple accounts to simultaneously to make your characters unkillable, whatever, to get a step up in the game. I think that should not be allowed.
Yeah, so apparently I'm reading up on it now. Apparently it was more directed towards botting, not multi-boxing. So multi-boxing or playing multiple World of Warcraft accounts at once is not a violation of terms of service. Please know, however, that the use of input broadcasting software may result in account penalties. So what they're saying was these changes have not made multi-boxing against TOS. What they've effectively accomplished is that Blizzard will start watching your input methods by players. This is relevant because many full-out bots or players using automation software usually have their input coming from a separate broadcasting software, not the hardware.
Right.
So I think it was more of a bot thing than anything else.
Yeah.
Interesting. I know that I was guilty back in the old days of using auto hotkey to essentially make a 1-button rotation. Where I had 1 button I would press that would try to press all my rotation keys, and it would just do whatever one was off cooldown.
Yeah.
That's a pretty innocuous use of it, but it sounds like that would be one of the things that would be getting hit by this potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, how can you multi-box without some kind of a broadcast, right? How do you tell multiple instances of WoW to do this, to choose something? I don't know. It's a little above my understanding, to be honest.
Yeah. Someone from the chat, AL Gaming, is suggesting that this change might be more targeted towards retail, and the fact like he specifically suggested the fact that that multiple people can all loot the same ore and mineral, whereas in classic realms, like only the first person to hit it gets the tap, right? I guess in retail that's different.
You can have, you can multiple people can tap the same node, but it
has a limited spawn. Yeah.
Limited spawn. So like, say I hit it then Def hits it, and it was only a 2-hit node, I would get one, Def would get one, and then it would disappear.
Mm.
Whereas in retail, I think, as long as it's still up, they never despawn, right? They just kind of sit there.
No, they despawn after one tap, but you get everything after one tap. You get all the mats from one tap.
So I guess you can multiple people hit it at the same time. Yeah.
Okay.
10 people hit it all at the same time. 10 people all get the ore. Exactly.
Okay,
Also, shout out to Al. That's Al from our guild. Also from Onslaught. So we love you, Al.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, bots certainly have seemed to be. When I was coming into Classic, so I just played Classic for a couple months, right, when it came out. I told you guys earlier I stopped at Onyxia. But I watched it as it went on, and I specifically stopped the day before Phase 2, which is another conversation that we could have, although we don't have to. I was surprised about hearing all the reports of the bots running the economy for this game, and about how... And I saw a really excellent, I wish I could remember if it was a video or an article, where someone described the whole life cycle of bots, where they talked about bots put items, they farm the economy, they make it impossible for people to actually farm things themselves. So you have to buy things. And in order to buy things, you need gold. And in order to get gold, what people are doing, apparently, and maybe you guys can tell me if you've experienced this, is attending these GDKP, gold DKP rates, where the idea is... rather than having DKP total up for members who play, which is the classic DKP, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a show of loyalty and of actual time investment. Gold is your DKP. And so basically you auction the items off and they get distributed among the whole raid. So you have one whale who has RMT'd 30,000 gold to get a Drake Fang talisman or whatever the hell they want. And then that gets split 39 ways at the end of the raid. And that's how people make money to buy consumables, because they can't farm them because the fucking bots, which are selling their stuff. I mean, it's a whole fucked up cycle.
Yeah. GDKPs are pretty cool. Yeah. But it does allow people that have a lot of gold to, get items, which, I mean,
I don't know. I have the opposite stance on this. I've never done the GDKP. And you know what? I don't know. Like I spent some time farming today. I farmed Dire Maul. I farm out in the Badlands. I farm everything. Like I don't spend.
You do it all yourself.
I do it all myself, and it's doable. Number one, and number two, these bots are so poorly scripted that you can outcompete them easily. Like I'll run to the Badlands and I'll see this hunter, and I'll know within a millisecond whether it's a bot or not, because they like keyboard turn and they and I'm just like,
and the name, no guild, the name,
all I do is like on my warrior, or on my hunter, I'll just tag everything, and then they just finish them off for me, and I'll just let him farm for me, or then I'll like charge in on my warrior and do the same thing, and I love it because like I hate bots, right? So what I do is as long as I know I'm wasting their time, I'm very happy, right? So then and I report them, right? So I do all of this, and I don't know. I see people's argument that it's hard, like because of the bots, but then I just say go out there and just outproduce them. Like they're very easy to outproduce.
Yeah.
Now instances that's different. They can do instances way more effectively than a single player can,
right?
Because they're all multi-boxing, multiple mages or whatever. But I have a hunter and I can solo DM East and stuff like that. So, but I do it all myself.
So it sounds like what you're maybe suggesting is that the idea of this RMT GDKP farming bots like kind of life cycle is maybe perhaps a bit overstated and not as dominant as maybe others would lead one to believe.
Yeah, well,
I'm just saying that I think people.
How big of a problem is it?
The bots?
Huge.
It's huge, yeah. I mean,
how much of the economy is driven by AI, and how much of it is driven by people who are playing the game? What's your impression?
That's hard to know, but I think, especially like Lotuses, like we have bots that can literally just fucking, I don't know how they do it, fly in the air to different Lotus spawns.
They teleport.
They teleport. So a lot of the Lotuses, I would say, are from bots. A lot of the, maybe arcane crystals, a lot of the dark runes, anything that's farmed in dungeons, you know what I mean? Like, most of them are probably, I don't know if most of them are for bots. I see a lot of bots farming in places where there is like a high drop rate for, certain things like edge masters, you know what I mean? So a couple of the edgies in the auction house could be from bots. It's hard to know for sure, but they're everywhere. You do a /who Skolo and you just see a list of bots that are in there.
Right.
So yeah.
It makes things. I can understand why people hate it, because like, let's say like Righteous Orbs, right? People used to run strat and to farm these things to make real money, right? But there's so many bots now that the Righteous Orb prices has deflated to like 5 gold a piece. So I see the frustration. Like, I get it, right? But there are other farms, and I guess it's like
things that are not good for bots.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't give up on it. Like, find something that does work, because I just would hate to have to join a DK. I mean, I can't. I mean, because I'm raid locked, so because I only raid on one character, so I can never do that. So I'd rather go out and farm.
The shitty thing about, I saw there was a mage, who did a GDKP AQ, and a mage just out of spite bought Death Sting, which is the dagger from Cthulhu, which is like the abyss for like rogues, right. And he just bought it because he had an obscene amount of gold. You know what I mean? Just to be a dick. Like, things like that do happen. Then you, like someone in chat said, you have people who potentially might buy gold just so they have the gold to go into GDKPs and buy what they want to buy. But like I have seen some GDKPs that end up at, pretty good. People are pretty happy at the end of it. There are just obscenely expensive items though, like Onslaught Girdle that everyone's trying to get, and people end up paying it, Uber's amount of money for, and stuff like that. So yeah, it can get kind of crazy.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's a problem, and I think they need to do something about it for TBC, or it's going to be worse, or just as bad. Not worse, but just as bad.
Hopefully, this is one of those things that can help. Yeah, we'll see. Well, I want to respect your guys' time, and I know you guys have other things to do. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you guys have going on in the world of content and streaming?
So tomorrow at 12:40 Eastern Time, 12:40 p.m., so the afternoon, Ale, who's in the chat, twitch.tv/Ale Gaming, is going to be covering us doing a 5-man dungeon speedrun competition. And the person who's running that, let me just make sure I plug the right person here, is, sorry. God, I can't find his name. Anyway, so maybe Al can put it in the chat while we're talking. But so essentially, what it is, it's a 5-man dungeon. It's apparently this is the second time he's ever done it. The first time there was no class like distinctions. You can have like multiple Draenor. That's the person's.
Got it.
You can have multiple the same class. So I think the comp that won was like 4 warriors and a shaman. Surprise.
Yeah.
And it's not kind of fun,
Kind of boring.
So now, So now this time they're doing only one of each class. Yeah. So our comp's going to be warrior, who's Ale, Defcamp the priest, myself as a shaman, and Buzz, who's our hunter, and Slumber Party, our rogue. And we're going to do this at 12:40. Our goal is to get in there and blow out Dharma West. You only have to kill 2 bosses in there, so you have to be kind of know the dungeon and know how to bypass certain things. And we're going to prep for that. So we copied we got our characters world buffs. We're going to copy our characters over to the classic PTR, and we're going to actually practice it tonight before we do it. So
it is so beautifully nerdy. I love it.
Sometimes, we do.
Yeah, got to go hard sometimes. Yeah.
And are you guys competing against other 5-man teams?
Yes. Yeah. The prize is I think $150, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We care about the bragging rights more.
Yeah, we want the bragging rights.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. Well, it sounds like a good time. I wish you guys luck, and I hope your practice goes well. Where can folks find you guys on the internet?
So YouTube is Defcamp and Melderon TV. So it's Defcamp, the N%, and then Melderon TV. Twitter is def_mel TV. Twitch is twitch.tv/Defcamp. I have twitch.tv/Melderon, but I rarely ever stream unless it's like something I need to do for something. And that's about it. We also have like a podcast. So if you go to like your favorite podcast provider and type in Defcamp and Melderon, you can find like our podcast, right? We have a podcast. So if you go to like Spotify and type in Defcamp and Melderon, our podcast will pop up too, which is basically GMA, which we do with cargoes.
Yeah.
Any of the longer content we do on our channel that's kind of like an audio interview, like with Ale, we've done a few. Or that's basically what it is. It's GMA, and anything we do on our own YouTube channel, we also rehost on our podcast. That's a podcasty type thing, right? Like not a guide, but yeah.
Right.
Got it.
And then
people can go find your stuff. Go on.
ClassicWow.live is a website that we have all worked on, and mostly Al and Melderon and Navic, Egregious, Cargos, those guys. It's has some cool tools. There's a gear planner that you can use. There's
nice.
a leveling guide and stuff like that. So it's a really cool tool as well.
Yeah, we focus on more high-end guides, and we not to say we want to be elitist jerks, but we want to focus on kind of the minutia, like a little bit of theory crafting stuff, and something that's a little bit more non-basic, something you wouldn't find on Classic Wildhead, which we try to specialize in stuff like that on Classic Wild.live. At least for TBC, we're going to be transitioning to more of that kind of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys both for taking the time to come talk to me. This was really fun. Thanks for being open and honest about all this stuff. WoW and health and everything else.
Absolutely.
And good luck in your competition. And of course, in Naxxramas, Burning Crusade, and things to come.
Thank you. We're going to need it for next. Saffron's going to be a B. We're going to.
Yeah. I can't wait, though. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm ready for a challenge. Yep.
All right. Well, have fun. And thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Deeg, host of Basementside Chats. This is the podcast. Deeg BS on YouTube, Deeg TV on Twitch. And I got a Discord if you want to stay updated and everything. I'll see you guys around. Thank you.
Thanks. And we'll love to come back on at some point as well.
Excellent. Look forward to that.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Keep on and grind.
Take care.
See you.